The last couple of days, I've been thinking about what kind of way to cover this, what elements of the story to cover. Sometimes it's easy for me. Sometimes it's a sports or a video game story, and it's just easy to pop out a 5 to 10 minute upload. But a lot of times, it's a little more difficult. Like I said, when you have an instance to where not only a person, a public figure, was shot, but they were actually killed. The closest thing I've ever done commentary wise to this was last year when President Trump was shot. He survived that, however. Charlie Kirk was not as lucky. Now, Charlie Kirk is somebody that I really don't know a whole lot about. In fact, one of the only reasons I know who Charlie Kirk is I looked him up. I Googled him after a South Park episode, which I'll get into in a moment. Before I get into that, this is not going to be a long upload. I really don't have the time right now to really cover this from every different angle. Like I said, I was going to go over a couple things. There's really not any good news in this story. The closest thing to good news is that the shooter has actually been caught in custody. His name is Tyler Robinson. So the shooter was actually found and is in custody in Utah. Of course, the terrible news is Charlie Kirk was shot and basically murdered in a crowd. Now, I didn't know much about who this person was, except it was Southpark. And Cartman was on that episode, and he had his hair styled as this person, Charlie Kirk. Basically, Charlie Kirk is, from what I gather, someone very prominent on the right, and he outreaches and tries to connect with young and upcoming people on the right side politically. And he, I guess, is best known for, and what he was parodied for in the South Park episode, is his Prove Me Wrong thing, little tent he had. And he would actually bring on people, mostly college students, to debate him on issues. I had never seen one of those debates. But what I just want to talk about here is how many people are actually blaming South Park for this going down, believe it or not. And certain people are actually calling for South Park this season to be canceled over this, which I don't think will actually happen. But what did happen was there was a re-airing of that episode that was supposed to air Wednesday that was taken out of the rotation, or maybe it was replaced with one of the other 4 episodes. That episode was called Got a Nut. And that episode revolved around not only Charlie Kirk, but actually didn't revolve around Charlie Kirk. That was more of like a side kind of thing. It revolved around this one character that was being parodied. I think like her face kept like melting off. I don't know why that was the case. But the main purpose of that episode was to parody, I think, Donald Trump and, of course, his connection with Satan and J.D. Vance and that ongoing story on the season. But to really ridicule and satire, not Charlie Kirk so much as this one woman who there's a story around what they kept doing in the episode. She kept killing dogs, small animals, because she actually legitimately shot one of her dogs, I think, for not a good reason. I do not think that the series will be canceled or taken off air of Paramount. Now, why is South Park even important in this is my curiosity. Because some of the people that are talking about how South Park should be taken off the air are somehow saying that because Charlie Kirk's caricature was in that episode as Cartman, they try to make the path from point A to point B of this shooter somehow choosing to do the horrendous crime that they did because of an episode of South Park. Because Charlie Kirk was cartoonized. I do not think I know of any instance to where, whether it's Family Guy, whether it's South Park, whether it's The Simpsons, any show that makes fun of famous people, I don't think of it. There's ever been an instance to where that would actually make someone go out and commit a horrible crime from that. But it speaks also to, satire. Where do you draw the line in satire? And when something like this happens, a lot of people will point to and say, well, Trey Parker and Matt Stone should feel terrible about this. They should feel partly responsible for this. I just don't agree with that. Now, I do think if I was in a situation, if I was making a show like that, I do critical satire sometimes on YouTube here, but it's not the level of like Trey and Matt and Southpark, of course. I personally, I would feel bad for something happening. I would feel bad for anybody having that happen to them. And I haven't looked at the video. I hear it's pretty terrible. I just don't want to have that image in my head. Some people, they're really quick to search things online and see the actual video. It's not the case with me. I just think it's sad. And I would be saddened. Anybody should be saddened if a person, regardless of how you feel about them politically, is shot and killed, because they leave behind a family. That's another element here. A lot of people that are getting online right now saying all these things about how it's a good thing that this person was taken out. That's a very disgusting way to look at it, because you have some disagreements with somebody. And, what I look at is when the news is covering this, I see a picture of his wife and kid, especially the kid. I think about how that kid now is raised up without a father. So that's an element a lot of people just forget when they're online and debating back and forth about this shooter and if they were somehow justified in doing this. But I just look at it from the element, like I said, I don't know a whole lot about Charlie Kirk. I know a lot about Southpark. I watched that show. I look at it from the element that I do not agree. I definitely do not agree that Southpark should be banned or taken off the air because they are a satire show partly. And you don't have to agree with the satire. But if that happens, if something like this starts to happen to where, not just talking about taking an episode or rerun out of a rotation, but if we start canceling entire series like South Park because of something like this happening, while definitely a terrible thing that happened, then where do we draw the line? And what happens to like a lot of the satire shows, or even like Late Night that was criticizing Trump? He survived. So some people would say once you have been shot or nearly killed, you are no longer open to criticism. You basically have an aura around you and you cannot be criticized. So another thing about my element here, and my apologies, this is definitely not planned. It's just something I want to get through and talk about a little bit so I can get to other things because it's on my mind, is how several people, to me personally on YouTube, have asked me, well, if something bad happened to one of these people that you've criticized, wouldn't you feel terrible about it? I've criticized several people, both famous and non-famous, on the platform. Again, I would feel bad if something like that happened to anybody, especially with a family. And anyone that doesn't feel bad about it obviously has never lost somebody, and you never actually experienced what it's like to lose a friend, to lose a loved one, to lose a family member. And I know it means nothing, but my feelings and thoughts go out to the family of Charlie Kirk. A lot of people definitely do not agree with a lot of his stances, but you have to agree that right now our thoughts should go out with his immediate family.